Hey there, welcome to the banks of the Sea of Cortez down here in Mexico, finishing up my permanent residency. It's a little cloudy down here, but it's a good day to talk about permanent residency. Let's see how I got it. Very excited today. I finally got my permanent residency for Mexico. Permanent residency is good for life, and you don't have any in-country requirements for it. You can just come and go. You can be gone as long as you want. You can stay as long as you want. The beauty of permanent residency. Some countries you do have to have some presence in the country. For example, Ecuador, you have to show up once every 5 years after you have the permanent residency. But Mexico has no such rules right now. So that's awesome. So there's 2 steps to permanent residency. One is the way I did it, which is you get your temporary residency. You apply for that in the country that you are in. You go to the consulate, apply for a temporary residency. You get approved. You've got to run down to the Mexico within the next 60 days, if I recall right. I have videos on the process for temporary residency. Go look at those for details on that. But you run down the country with your residency visa, say I want to be a temporary resident, you fill out some paperwork, you pay some money, you get a year temporary residency. A year later, you apply for a renewal, you get a 3-year temporary residency, and after being a temporary resident for 4 years, you can then apply for permanent residency, which is what I did this week. Yay. The other way is if you're retired and you can prove income, you can jump to immediate permanent residency. I tried to do this with proving income, but the consulate wouldn't let me because they didn't think I was retired, and I wasn't, so I really couldn't prove it. So I did the temporary step. Some people get lucky with the consulates not caring. Other people, like me, don't. It doesn't really matter because once you start the train of temporary, it's not hard. You just got to go spend a couple more days in immigration, once in 1 year and once again in 3 years after that. It's not the end of the world. So let's talk about how I got temporary or permanent residency and what the cost was. Okay, first let's talk about the requirements as far as dollars to get into the country. So this has gone up. I'm pretty sure when I did my temporary starting 4 years ago, it was $2,300 a month for temporary. And I think it was $50,000, $56,000 for savings that you had to prove. Well, $2,300 wasn't hard. $4,400 isn't hard if you're working, but it starts to get a little difficult. Basically, Mexico does not want other people's problems. If you want to move down here, you better have some money. Again, $4,400 a month is nothing if you're working. If you're retired, it's a little bit of a chunk of change. In permanent residency, jumping directly to that is even more difficult. At $7,400 a month, or almost $300,000 in savings consistently over the past 12 months. You cannot dip below those values. I got these directly off the Mexi Experience site. That's where I usually get my data on this. There is some variation on this depending on the consulate and what formula they're using, but these are good guideline numbers. So if you ever think you might want to have residency in Mexico, since these numbers keep going up every year, I strongly recommend you start now. That's one of the reasons I started back 4 years ago, because I could prove the income easy, and I wanted to get locked into those numbers. And the key is you do get locked in. Once you prove your temporary and you start the process to permanent, you don't prove income again. Your conversion to permanent happens without you having to show income. So the only income they've ever seen from me was the ones from 4 years ago, which is nice. So jumping to permanent can be difficult. Maybe you do want to do that step up through temporary if you can't meet the permanent requirements for dollars right away. You can start at temporary, walk up through there, and then you don't have to re-show them, which can be quite nice. I'm a big fan of getting somebody who knows what they're doing in the country to help you. You can do this all alone. I don't recommend it, and I don't do it. If your Spanish is passable, you can talk to immigration. Quite frankly, the immigration folks down here have perfectly good English. I have gone to them last time when I redid my temporary 3 years ago. I went alone, and I was able to converse with them in Spanglish with no problem and go through the process with no problem. I did have somebody help me fill out the forms and guide me. This time, I just got lazy. I not only had them do the forms, I had them do all the work. I didn't even go to the first appointment to get to apply for permanent residency. I had my facilitator do all the work. The only thing I did was show up the next day and get fingerprints and photos because I can't do that for you. Okay, so who did I use? Let's go back to PowerPoint. We'll talk about who I used and the money. Okay, so the group I used was Host Relocation. I got their information from another YouTuber. Her name is Alex Blitman. I don't personally know her, I just watch her on YouTube. If you're interested in Mexico, she has a great channel on nothing but Mexico. And she talks a lot about residency. And I got the name of Yvonne from her. So I contacted Yvonne through Host Relocation and said, hey, I want to get my permanent residency. And because I've been doing the process in San Jose Del Cabo, or specifically Cabo San Lucas is where the immigration office is, it's best if you continue the process in the same office or you have to file address forms. And one thing I forgot to mention, when I am in Mexico, I'm always at the same address. I have a wonderful Airbnb host that allows me to always use their place when I come in. They give me the electric bill to show that, I am living here. And that makes it nice because I don't have to file change of addresses all the time. And it shows continuity. So I do that. And since I do that in Cabo, I needed somebody in Cabo. So Yvonne turfed me off to a nice lady called Claudia. I would put her last name down here if I could all remember it, but I don't. But if you call Yvonne, and you're in San Jose, you'd probably get sent over to Claudia, who did a fantastic job for me. So first of all, Host Relocation Services is flat, 9,000 pesos. That's about $500. Steep? Yeah, maybe, but I'm lazy. I'm happy to pay it. The government fee, if you look on the government website, it's like roughly equivalent of 13,250-ish pesos. But when you add in a couple fees they're going to charge you, they were pretty accurate with the 15,000 peso estimate that they gave me. And there's an option for expedited services. You can search all day long for expedited service fees on the Mexican immigration websites. You're not going to find them. The expedited fee was described to me as a very local fee, not only to the office, but to the agent. So the expedited fee is variable. The one I was quoted and the one I paid was 7,000 pesos. Again, not a small amount. But what this does is changes it from a 10 to 14 day process to a 1-day process. I applied, more specifically, my facilitator applied. I was approved, and the next day I went down, got pictures and prints, and got my card. And I was able to then leave the country. Remember, you're kind of stuck in the country while you're in this limbo waiting for it to be done. And I don't like being stuck anywhere in limbo. I have an elderly mom. If I need to leave the country rapidly, I want to be able to do so. So I went ahead and paid the expedited fee. I'm still hanging out in Cabo. That's, for a couple weeks. I'm going to do that. But there is that option. This was super simple. They filled out all the paperwork for me. I had to sign a few forms, answer a few questions, pay money, show up, get pictures and prints, and I got my card. This is the way to do it. I wholeheartedly recommend this process. So instead of waiting in line, spending time in the immigration office, I was able to work. I much rather do that. This was the cost to get here. I will leave links for the YouTube channel for Alex, because if you're coming to Mexico, I strongly suggest you watch her channel. I'll leave the information for Host Relocation. And I won't leave Claudia's direct number. You go through the main site to get put out to the right facilitator for your area. And that's it. I hope you find this information useful. I know it's a reduced amount of information. Like all of my videos for dealing with immigration, I wholeheartedly recommend using a lawyer or facilitator. A little bit of a cop-out, perhaps, but I find it so much easier, and it reduces your own risk and exposure. So hope you enjoy this. Hope you consider Mexico. This for me is my second permanent residency. I have permanent residency in Mexico, permanent residency in Ecuador, of course. I hope you find this interesting. Take care. Hope to see you out on the travel. Bye.